Hello guys, my name is Khan, and actually in today's video I will tell you guys about loops. I have already discussed about loops in my first video. In my first video I discussed a bit simple things that you can do in loops, and in this video I will talk about a bit advanced about loops, and I will show you guys that how you can use loops and how you can move from hard coding to soft coding, and I will also define what does it mean by hard coded script. So I have already created a folder for you guys for this video. So I will be using my F drive, then R videos, then loops part 2, and this is the code that I have created for you guys. I will open it for you guys. Actually, this is the script. I will just maximize it so that you guys will be able to see it more properly, and I'm just going to zoom in so that you guys will be able to see it more properly. So this is my code. So I will talk about, so I will start from my start of the code. So again, I am setting my working directory, which setting a working directory means that I'm giving a folder path which I will be using for this video, and all of my data import and export files will be going to this folder. And after that, for this video, I am using this CSV data in CSV format. So first I'm importing this data, and then I'm assigning it to an object named as data1. And afterwards, but before discussing the loops in R, I will discuss variable types in R, and I will show you guys what does it mean by variable types. So first I will upload my data. Control Shift Home and then Control Enter to execute the code till the line number 11. And if I go back to my console, so as you can see that I have uploaded the data, and if I expand my data set, the important thing to note here is that once you expand your data set, the R is showing the variable names first. Then you can see that there are things like factor, integer. So what are these things? So I will explore or tell you guys about these things. What does it mean by number, integer, and factors in R? So I will go back to my code file. Which is here. So first I will tell you guys about the factor variables. So actually there are three main types of variable. One of the type of the variable is factor variable. So if you go back, if you see that in R, actually this make variable is a factor variable. So, and I will explain what does it mean by factor variable. So actually factor variables, if you look at here, you can see that factor variables are actually labeled variables where we have the numerics behind the variable, and those numerics are labeled by these things. So suppose if I browse this data, if I click it, if I see this make, as you can see that make is actually representing the data MC Concord, MC Pacer, but in the back end of this label there is also a numeric. So suppose if we have AMC Concord in row number 22, then its numeric label will remain 1 because it's the same car make which is coming the second time. But here all these makes are unique, so every make have its own unique label. But if I go down towards my foreign variable, as you can see that foreign variable have only just two types, domestic or foreign. So domestic are labeled as 1, numerically labeled as 1, and numeric 1 is labeled as domestic, whereas foreign is labeled as 2. So and 2 numeric is labeled as foreign string. So but from a factor variable you can extract both the numeric part and the string part too. So suppose if I want to see the string part of my numeric variable, so I can use this function levels, and it will tell me that how many levels this make variable have, and if I execute it, control enter, it will create a vector, and it's showing me all these levels that this make variables have. And again, the same way I can also show the level this foreign variable have. Foreign have just 2 levels, domestic or foreign, and I can enter it, and as you can see, R have created a vector, and it is showing that that this foreign variable have only 2 levels, domestic and foreign. After that, we can also assign this levels to a vector. I will show you guys why it's very important thing that we can assign this level to a vector, because this can make our life very easy. So and I will show you guys later in the video that how it will make our life easy. Enter. I'm assigning levels of make variable to a vector. As you can see that I have created a new vector, as you can also see in this environment. R have created a new vector, make underscore vec, and I have assigned all those levels to a vector. In the same way, you can also assign the numeric part of the factor to a vector too. So for that you have to use this nlevels function. So if you are using nlevels function, so it will not assign the string part of the factor, it will assign the numeric part of the factor. And if I execute it, control enter, you can see that it have assigned it is telling us that there are 74 levels in this make variable. Again, also another thing to note down here is that other than factor variable, there is another type of variable which is the character variable. Character, I usually call them string variable. So for you guys, I'm going to create a string variable in this data set. So what I'm saying that I am creating a string variable also named as string, and I'm saying if that for the whole column it will be Hassan. So if I execute it, control enter, and if I go to my data, as you can see in the end, R have created a variable in data1 data frame, a string named as string, and it's labeled as Hassan. If I browse it, so in all rows Hassan will be appearing. So as you can see, we have added, but this is a string variable, it's not a factor variable. So but in R you can easily convert a string variable into a factor variable too. So in order to convert into a factor variable, you just have to use this command, and you have to assign the variable that you want to convert into a factor. And here I'm creating a new variable, and I'm just adding an F so that in order to make it differentiate from this string variable. And once I will execute it, control enter, Now if I go back to my data environment, so as you can see here, the string variable, which is the character chr, which means that it's a character variable, whereas in string f, which is I have made a factor variable, and it's showing that it have only one level, and the level is labeled as Hassan, and then it's the numeric part of the label. So actually one will be always labeled as Hassan in this variable. After that, I will show you guys that you can so suppose if you have a factor variable and you want to save it as a string variable, it's also doable. So what I am doing here, in order to make a factor variable, this is my factor variable, I want to make it a string variable, you will say as.character, and then you will add down this variable name, which is currently a factor variable, and you want to convert it into a string variable. So I am assigning this whole function into a new variable, which is I am calling it string2, because I already have a string, then I convert it into a factor, and I'm creating a factor variable back into string by using this function. This is a very, very important function, as.character. If you have to analyze data, you will be using this function a lot, but because sometimes you need to convert a numeric variable into a character, or character variable to a numeric for different computation. So again, in the same way, you can also convert a factor variable into a numeric. But the point here is to note down is that when you convert a factor variable into a string, only the string part of the level will appear. So I will show you guys what I'm saying. So if I execute my whole code and control enter, and if I go back to my data, so first I have created a string which is Hassan, which is a character variable. Then I have created a factor variable which is showing that it have only one level, which is labeled as Hassan. But when I have created this factor variable back to a string variable, the only Hassan, the label will appear in the rows. The numeric part is not saved here in the character part, which you can also see. I think it's better to explain from this window. Again, when you are converting a factor variable to a character variable, only the label part will be saved in your data frame. The numeric part will not be saved. But if you want to save the numeric part, you can also do that by using this as.numeric. If I execute, so what I'm doing, I'm again using a factor variable. I am saying it to that I want to save it as a numeric variable into another variable, and I'm just adding string n, so it will be a new variable. If I do that, and I will show you guys back, the string variable, it will be a string variable, and it will be only having the numeric part, which is 1 here. So when you are using a as.character function, it will save the label part of the factor, and when you are using as.numeric, it will save the numeric part of the factor. And the third type of the variable in R is a continuous numeric variable. For example, if I go to my data, as you can see, the price is a continuous form of data. The MPG is continuous form of data. Whereas if you look at rep78, it's numeric variable, but it's not continuous. Actually, it's a categorical numeric variable. In the same way, this type variable is a categorical variable. If I make a command, if I write down here table, if I tabulate the type variable, and if I say data1 dollar type, and if I enter it, you can see that there are 3 types of car. Actually, type variable is representing the type of the car. Ones mean diesel, second mean petrol, and third mean electric. So as you can see that I have 19 observations with type 1, 37 observations of car with type 2, and 18 observations of car with type 3. So it's a type variable is actually a numeric, but it's a categorical numeric variable. So I'm going to close this window, and after that, if I go back, so in the same way, we can also convert numeric variables into factor variables, and I will show you guys how it will be useful to do that. So here I'm trying to convert a type variable into a factor variable. So I'm using this function again. So this is the factor function which I'm using with this type function, and I'm assigning all this operation to a new variable type 2. So first I will do that. So first I've created a factor variable which is named as type 2, and if I go back here, you can see that I have created a factor variable with 3 levels, 1, 2, and 3, and behind those factor it's labeled as the numeric part. So after that, what I am doing, I am assigning the levels of that variables to a vector. So this vector probably will be having a length of 3 because I have just 3 levels. So as you can see, if I call this vector again, as I said, copy this. So the important thing to note here, it's not a part of data 1, it's a separate vector that I have created which is appearing in the end under the values. So as you can see that I have created this vector, and the good thing about this vector is that if you get a new data, and suppose and the type variable got updated, and we may have ended up having more than 3 types of car, maybe 4 or 5 types of car, so then this vector will automatically get updated. So this is one of the important use of this levels function. And another thing that I would like to add, that the level function that I'm using will only work if the variable within the function is factor variable. If you use a string variable or a numeric variable within this function, probably R will give you an error. After that, one of the reason about telling about different types of variables in R, because I want to show you guys that how you can use that level vector in a loop. And one of the reason of converting different variables to a factor variable is that so that you're able to extract different levels within that variable, so that you will be able to use in a loop. The next thing will be that suppose that we want to extract each type data. It means that each car type data. Suppose we have 3, as I've shown you guys, that we have 3 types of car in this data, and I want to extract each type car observation in a separate CSV file. Suppose your supervisor asks you to send him each type of car data in a separate CSV file. And so in order to do that in a very efficient way, so it's better to first create this vector type vec. So suppose if you do it manually, how you can do it? So suppose I am creating, because I already know that there are 3 types of data starting from 1, sec 2, and 3. So I'm creating a loop, and I'm saying that okay, create a loop in which the I local can take a value from starting from 1, 2, and 3 because it's increasing by 1. And then I'm saying write a CSV file. Actually, this command I have discussed already in my last video. So in this command I'm saying write a CSV file, and I'm saying import a subset of data1, and I'm giving the condition when type is equal to I. So type is equal to I means that type will be 1, 2 and 3. So I will be importing subsections of data1 into a CSV file, and I will call each CSV file a name. The file name will be, I will be using the paste function. So I will be saying the file type, then 1, and then .csv because it will be a CSV file. I have already discussed this paste function too in my last video. If you guys have any issue, you can look at the first part of loops in the video, and I've also discussed this subset function in the that video too in more detail. So now if I execute, so this is one of the manual actually this is a hard-coded way of doing it, because you have to write down 3 here, and if the data got updated, suppose if your type variable got updated and in your new data your type variable have 1, 2, 3 or 4 types, maybe 5 or 6. So in that case you have to come at this line, you have to update to it 6, or maybe your new data don't start from 1, it may start from 2, and when you will run this code you probably will get an error because R will say that type is equal to 1 is not in the data. So that's why it's a bit hard way of coding, because whenever you will get a new data you have to come here in this line to see is it still applicable to the new data or not. So if I run this code for this data, it will not give me an error and it will work perfectly. But as I said that for the updated data set, maybe this loop will not work because maybe the type variable have more categories added into it. So I suppose if I do execute my code till line number 95, Control Shift Home and then Control Enter, and if I go back to my console window, as you can see that I didn't get any error, and if I go to my working directory, I probably will be having 3 CSV files. So type 1, type 2 and type 3. So if I go to type 2, as you can see I have only type 2 data set here observations here, and if I go to my R and if I see my table where I have tabulated the type 2 have 37 observations, so I must have only 37 observation in this data set. So as you can see I have only 37. It's saying 38 because the row header is the variable name. So I have 37 observations of type 2 data. This means that loop is working perfectly. Now I'm just going to close this window and going back to my working directory. I'm just going to delete these files, because now I will try to generate these 3 files with you can say with soft coding or without hard coding, and I also don't want to create this file by using this command. And suppose if I run the code will not do anything because I commented out the function which is doing some operation within this loop. So actually this loop is just a blank loop, not doing anything, because I haven't used, even if I go to here, I haven't created any CSV files because I commented out the actual operation. So now because of this number sign, this thing will be considered as a comment, not as a function or as a command. So suppose the above way is also good, but this is not a code. This is the way of coding is hard coding, which I've done before. But as again, if I I will show you that in future data set, if your type variable got updated, then you have to adjust it again. But if you have uses this type vec, which I have created in line 75, and actually this way it's automatically the R will decide how many levels are in this type variables R, so you don't need to mention in a loop. So you will just say in your loop that for I in type vec, and then I will be using this function to export the dataset for each type. But the important thing here is that I'm using type 2 because this type vector is got created on type 2 because type 2 is a factor variable, and I extract the factors and assign those factors to type vec, and therefore I am using type 2 variable here. And then I am again giving it a file name and executing it. So if I execute now, so hopefully R will create 3 CSV files. So as you can see, R haven't given me any error. This means that everything went well. If I go to my folder, I can see that I have got created three new files. But I will show you guys one very interesting thing. Suppose if I go to my actual data which I'm uploading into R, and if I update it into, suppose if I say there is also some type 0 and there is also some type, and I suppose if I say that the type 1 is there is no type 1, all the types one type are considered as type 5, and if I do that, so there is no type 1 now, and I have kind of created new types 0 and 5, and if I save it, I am saving it in the same format. So now my data got updated. But suppose now if I run this code, the hard-coded code, I am not updating my hard-coded loop, and I'm executed. Probably it will maybe I will get an error, or maybe the data R will import will not be accordingly. Enter. So again, I'm telling you guys that I have just executed the code till line number 94, where in the line below the line number 94 I'm using the soft coded part. So if I go here, the R haven't given me any error, but let's see that how many files it have created for me. So as you can see, it have created a type 1, but it will be a missing file because because there was no data for type 1, and the second thing, it didn't create type 0, type 5 that I have according to the data I have updated. The type 2 and type 3 file will be fine. But actually we are missing 2 files here, and this is a type 1 is a redundant file because there is no type in my updated data. So now I will delete this file, and I will show you guys that if I use the soft coded loop, and I'm just commenting it out so that R will not execute this part. And now I'm using I didn't do anything. In order to make it run this part correctly, the hard-coded part, I have to make adjustment to this part, the hard-coded part. But now if I executed the soft-coded part, I don't have to do anything. It will automatically do everything. Control Shift Home, Enter. As you can show you guys that I'm running this code till line number 110. If I go back to my code, R haven't given me any error, and now I will want to see that R have created a right output of not. And also if I say table, if I show you guys the data $1 type variable, as you can see that I have type 0, type 2, with type 3 and type 5. And if I go to my file. As you can see that now it perfectly looks fine. I have type 0 file, I have type 2 file, I have type 3 file, and I have type 5 file. Let's see if I open the type 0 file. As you can see, I have only data for type 0 and I have 3 observation for type 0 in this file. Also, I can check for type 2 just to double check. I must be having 37 observation for type 2. If I just go from here to here, it's 38. It's actually 37 because the first row is the row header. So everything is fine. I don't have to adjust anything because my code is soft coded. So this is one of the way of the soft coding, that you don't need to change your data if your data got updated. This part is actually a hard coded way of doing coding. And as you start moving towards big data sets, or you have become more and more experienced in data analysis, you will prefer to do soft coding instead of doing hard coding, because it will be very difficult to keep on updating your code according to the data. So it's better to design your code in a way that you don't need to update it. The code itself got updated according to the data. So this is a short overview about loops and about a bit about soft coding. Probably I will make another video about loops, and we will discuss a bit more advanced things in that part. Thank you for watching the video.